Oh hey, you might be wondering why I'm watering this beautiful flowering cannabis plant, and I'll show you why, because something really interesting happened in the last few days. And this is actually an African Kenyan plant, so this is Landrace from Kenya. But as you can see, this very female plant has gone full-blown hermaphrodite. So now it has, yeah, and basically all over. So if you want to see like the whole plant here, so basically it's actually a really cool adaptation of the cannabis plant. So we're not angry at this plant. I know some people get really upset when their plants herm, but you got to look at or at least we like to look at the whole big picture, that this is actually a very cool survival strategy of this plant. It's a female plant. It wants to get pollinated. It wants to create seeds. That's its whole purpose in life. And if there's no males around, it says, okay, fine, I'll become a male and I'll pollinate myself and make my own seeds so I can have more babies. And so it's actually a really cool adaptation survival trait. The only problem is when you're trying to grow sensimilla, seedless, beautiful cannabis for consuming the flower, seeds are no fun to deal with. So for this particular plant, we're going to honor that cannabis has been gender fluid, practicing gender fluidity for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, which is cool, very cool, especially in this day and age, to appreciate that. But for this particular garden, we're going to have to say adios to this plant, but we do want to honor it. We also wanted to share with you what it looks like when a plant does start off very female and then go very herm. So now it was basically on its way to pollinating itself, and the thing is, it's going to pollinate all the neighbors as well. And I want to show you one other thing that's very curious, that gets into plant communication and sort of communal cannabis plants and how they interact with each other. Because the very bizarre thing here is that this plant hermaphrodited, the one next to it actually did. We've already had to say adios, honor this plant, but not appropriate for this garden. And this plant as well, and this plant actually this is the one that got eaten by a rat, so that's a different story. But out of this whole garden of over 200 plants, there were only 3 hermaphrodites, and they all happened in the same area. So it leads one to believe that possibly, and these are all different varieties too. This was Ethiopian, this was Nigerian, and this was Kenyan. So they're all African, but they're all very different strains, and they all hermaphrodited at the same time. So it does get you to start questioning if these plants were communicating with each other on some level, and the whole garden, and they're like, hey, there's no dudes. How are we gonna make seeds? And these 3 volunteers are like, we'll do it. So anyway, and this all happened within a matter of like 4 days. We hadn't checked in the last few days just because we've had that really heavy rain. So we didn't have the opportunity to come out and check these plants, but it's amazing how fast they hermed and started shooting out male flowers. But I think we caught them just before all those pollen sacs opened up. There may have been 1 or 2 that opened, so what we're doing is we're hosing down a lot of the neighboring plants just in case a little pollen escaped. And I don't get bent out of shape, especially because we make tincture, and this is an experimental garden anyway. So if we get a few seeds here and there, yeah, no problem, but we're just not going to use those seeds because those seeds now have that hermaphroditic trait, which is cool, but it's just not for our purposes. So anyway, hope that's interesting and fun. I'm sorry that this beautiful plant is gonna have to go. And again, we're honoring it and thinking it's really cool that adaptation, but it's just not appropriate for our style and what we're doing here in this garden. So, but anyway, hope that's cool. See you later.